Hello, my name is Kristen Steele, your session moderator today from WayUp in Yellow, and your host for today's program. Joining us today for our software engineering jobs panel are Tony Burdett at NCR Corporation, Haiti Garcia at Expedia Group, Iona Al-Ghafli at General Motors, and Lei Young at Dell Technologies. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to our attendees as well. We're excited to be part of this journey with you. So let's get started with overviews of some of our incredible software engineering programs. Let's start with NCR.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that. My name is Tony Burdett. I'm Global University Relations Leader at NCR. We actually do a lot of hiring in the software engineering career path for multiple students across multiple areas, both on the internship and full-time upon graduation. We actually use our internship program as a filler for full-time opportunities upon graduation, actually. We look for both full stack, front end, back end, UI, UX, product, multiple areas. So we kind of joke all the time, if you're a CS student and you code or you want to do any of those areas of expertise, we're definitely interested in talking to you about our opportunities here at NCR.
Thanks, Tony. Next, let's go with Expedia Group. Haiti.
Yeah, nice to meet you. My name is Haiti Garcia. I am at Expedia Group. I'm an early careers recruiter here. So here at Expedia Group, we are a global company. So we hire early careers talent across APAC, EMEA, and NORAM. Within the United States, we hire across Austin, Chicago, and Seattle, both internships and new grad positions. And we do offer a wide range of technical and non-technical positions. So some of our technical positions include software engineering, user experience, mobile engineering, machine learning. But with that being said, software engineering is our largest job profile that we hire for. And with that opportunity, we have, like I said, new grad and internship opportunities. Our internships are 10 weeks long. And we truly hope to, make that full-time offer to our intern after those 10 weeks are completed. A lot of our interns return and they bring along their friends, or they send along referrals, which is amazing because it just reflects on their experience here at Expedia Group. Our new grad program, we also have that for our software engineers. We have an August start date and a January start date, just to be mindful of folks who graduate in the winter time. And we also here at Expedia Group have a rotational program for our new grads, just so they can build upon their skill sets and network within Expedia Group.
Excellent, thank you. Up next is General Motors, Iona.
Oh, thank you. My name is Iona Al-Ghafli. I am the hiring and onboarding lead for the GPD track program here at General Motors. So the GPD track program, it's a rotational program. We focus on hardware and software. Currently, we are recruiting for the software for start dates this year. And the track program, it is a 2-year program with 4 rotations. They all last roughly about 6 months each. And our focus for our track program is to really, give different aspects into different areas, because when you come out of college, you maybe don't know exactly where you want to go. And so the track program can definitely help you with that. Our track program really feeds into the GM mission of 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. And the roles that new college grads would have the opportunity to work in are directly related into those. And just to give a little bit insight. So if for our 0 crashes, a potential area that someone could go in would be virtual assistance and voice control. For 0 emissions, it could be battery health and optimization. And for 0 congestion, autonomous driving. So definitely a lot of features, new and up and coming things, but we do have both hardware and software. And then we also do have our intern program. We use Excel. That's our acronym for it. We do have a lot of acronyms here at General Motors, but the Excel program is a 10 to 12 week program and will also feed into that 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Last but not least, Lei at Dell.
Hello, thank you, Kristen. So here at Dell, we have various business units that do hire software, hardware, and product management. Our internship program is 10 to 12 week program. Our locations are typically in the Hopkinton, Round Rock, Austin, as well as remote locations. Some of our teams do have rotation programs. Those consist of typically a 3-year rotation with 1 year per rotation. We do look at computer science, computer engineering students. Many times our interns do rotate into our full-time positions. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so let's jump right into some questions. Have several for you today, so we'll start in no particular order. But question number 1, how do you make your resume strong and stand out from the crowd? Let's open with Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen, for that. I say this all the time when I'm speaking with students. Your resume is kind of like the story of who you are. So think about like the top half, the top quarter of your resume. You want that to really stand out. So if someone's reading this, they want to continue to read and get a sense of who you are from your background experience. I typically share with students all the time that obviously you want your primary contact information there, of course, with your name, the university you're going to, because you should always be proud of the fact that you're going to college and what that degree is in. And then you want to quickly move into any type of experience that you have. And specifically for CS students, I say this all the time, if you don't have that internship experience and you don't want to just put project experience, things like hackathons and other engagements where you can get that experience, you want to start to list that higher up in that process. So again, as people are looking at your resume, whether it's at a career fair or if you're one of 1,000 applicants in a process, you want to make sure you stand out in regards to the type of work that you have done and the work that you're going to be looking to do. But it really goes around that storytelling aspect from my perspective on that, Kristen.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Tony. Haiti, do you have any ideas you'd like to share?
Yes, of course. So it's so important for students to list out any leadership opportunities that they have had on campus. We understand, perhaps a student hasn't had an internship yet, but what are they doing on campus, on the ground, that's really building out their skill sets? So I will emphasize seeing hackathons, participations at conferences, being involved in student groups it's like a major plus as well. So as a recruiter, when I'm looking at that resume, I'm really looking at what is that student doing outside of classes to build their skill set.
Does that also include volunteer work or leadership?
Definitely. So volunteer work is also very crucial on the resume. It definitely makes it stand out, and participating in any events on campus or off campus as well. So
thank you. Appreciate that. Iona, advice for resumes?
So I would definitely say, when you're filling out the application per se with your resume, there's probably always a little section in there that says why this company. Like for us, we have 2 questions, why GM and why track. So, really filling in those, putting in the information in there, because we do read that. So making sure that you have the research on the company, so that way when you are filling those in, you have something to build on, and not just kind of, because I want a job type thing, just really build on that. What interests you about that company? And so that's really important, is always build on those and don't just kind of skip past those questions.
Oh, that's a great tip for standing out. Thank you. And Way.
Yeah, so specifically for engineering and software, definitely list out all languages, skills, and tools you utilize and have knowledge of. As previous panelists had mentioned, competitions like hackathons include those, and any internship employment opportunities that you've had, and ensure you have those dates listed in there as well.
Question for you about the hackathon experience or other avenues where you've gained experience. Do you like to see details and descriptions and accomplishments underneath those categories?
Definitely.
So more details.
Yes, please. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's think about the recruiting process now, coming from a student's perspective. How do they best understand the recruiting process? I'll start with Iona this time.
So I would say the best thing is to reach out to the recruiter. So once you get that reply, after you've already applied to the position, you're going to get a reply, and it's going to have that recruiter attached. Definitely reach out to them on LinkedIn, get a little bit of insight of the position, see what it is that they're looking for. And normally the application website will also have some information about, the position and the process. So definitely do your background, look up those things, do your homework, and, just kind of prepare for the interview, whether you're not going to get it, or you're going to get an interview. Always prepare. So being prepared is a very big key in the recruiting process. So, just become familiar with different types of questions, and just know the skills, like know your background, be familiar with the things that you have done. And so that's kind of the biggest things.
More homework. Oh, I love it though. This is the good kind of homework. Awesome. The easy kind. Lay, advice, how to understand the recruiting process.
Yeah, we'll definitely attend info sessions and some of the branding events. We do go over those process, expectations for the interviews. If it's not previously mentioned, ask if it's behavioral or technical, so you can properly prepare for those types of interviews. And definitely research the company, anything that has come up in the news as of late, or projects that they've been part of.
Yeah, lots of news for software engineers these days. Tony, advice that you want to give about the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think what's already been stated is fantastic for everyone to understand. I think as you enter the interview process, that's a question you want to ask at every step along the way of the process if you're uncertain, right? You're at a career fair, you apply whenever. You can always ask that question, what are the next steps? When it comes to software engineering, I'm a big proponent of telling students to talk to your classmates. They may have gone through that interview process and may have some insight. Get used to whiteboard exercises from a technical perspective, especially if you're freshman or sophomore. You're going to get used to this a lot as you go into this field and this space, and it'll really kind of prepare you for what's coming. It'll make you a better candidate. And at the end of the day, I know the whole research thing is out there, what we've talked about primarily now. But honestly, you can connect with people who maybe have come through your university who are already working at those companies. That's another way to do it. And I'm just going to leave it with this one last note. I'd love to share this story. I was at a career fair just to prove this point. My CTO was actually at the career fair, but instead of talking to students at the end, he was at the beginning. And Lily, a student, walked up and said, "What is NCR?" Now, good news is he got an interview still out of the process. But the mere fact he walked up and did not know who he's talking to, I think it shows why you always want to be prepared when you're speaking to companies, because you never know who's going to be standing at that booth. And when you become prepared like that, you're not going to stand out for the wrong reasons.
Oh, great story. Thank you. And Haiti, any tips, even standing out in the interview process?
Yeah, of course. I think one thing about just the recruiting process, when you show up and you're being seen by these companies, showing up to a career fair. Just yesterday, we had a Black and Well-Traveled event where a lot of students showed up, and those are just those types of opportunities where you can make yourself known before, even entering the interview process. So now I have, people in mind that actually, took that extra effort just to show up and be seen by Expedia Group. So showing up to those events, being seen is incredibly important. One thing I tell students when, sometimes you get a lot of LinkedIn messages after you apply, feel free to message the recruiter and tell them which job role you applied for. That way we're able to check, where your application stands. And then also, using every resource and every opportunity that the company gives you to, learn a little bit more. Sometimes we offer interview prep sessions as well. So, those are great opportunities for you to learn and ask, because not only do we want to be a good fit for you, like you should be, it should be both ways. Like we should both be a good fit for the candidate, and the candidate should be a good fit for the company as well. So learning, asking questions, and taking every opportunity you get.
I love that. I also appreciate the fact that you're talking about being detail oriented. If you're going to reach out on LinkedIn, sometimes cold calls work, right? But also remind you, I met you at this fair, at this time, this event, right? I think, how many messages do you all get where they just say, hey, with no other details? So really great tip. Speaking of kind of detail oriented, how should a candidate follow up with you? And I'll stick with you, Haiti.
Yes, of course. In terms of following up, like I said, knowing which role you applied for, where we met, when it comes to the interview process, I think it's very important, to show perhaps if you enjoyed the interview and you want to connect with one of the interviewers, I'm always more than happy to pass the information along. If there's anything that stood out during the interview to you that you really appreciated or you want to learn more about, also following up with that. And having that mutual respect throughout conversations is also really important. And continuing to follow up and and see where you stand in the interview process. Of course, I will mention recruiters get a high influx of messages, but knowing that you're interested in the role is always good, and being attentive to where you stand. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we all need to practice some patience these days. Lay, any advice you want to give on following up?
Send thank you messages through LinkedIn or email. Just thanking them, but be respectful as far as the managers and interview teams have several candidates they are interviewing. Interviews take place over several days. They may not have your follow-up or status the very next day. So we usually give 1 to 2 days to get feedback from our interviewing team, and then feedback to candidates within 1 to 2 weeks.
Excellent. Tony, I'm going to toss to you now.
Yeah, thank you. Again, agree with everything that's been stated already, but just to kind of add on there, how you communicate sometimes is key too, right? I always say this when I've done different conversations with students, whether it's in large groups or individuals, that, just to send an email, maybe you can pick up the phone, maybe you can, I literally I've seen students write letters as a thank you after an interview. You talk about really standing out in this time frame right now when people don't do things like that. And then ultimately, I think this is the most important thing about how you follow up. I agree with what everyone has stated about being courteous and being responsible, continuously thank people. But you also should be thinking these are potential people that might be contacts or networking people for you in the future, right? You never want to burn any bridge, even if it's not a good interview, not the company you go with. You never know where that person is going to be 5 to 10 years down the road. So always keep that in mind, whether it's a recruiter, it's a manager, whoever it might be in that company. Keep that at the forethought and say, hey, I really appreciate this opportunity. And think about that when you respond to those individuals.
Excellent advice. Iona.
Yes, everyone, really great points. But also, keeping that, how do I say that? Like being responsive, just overall being responsive in your responses, but also when that recruiter reaches back out to you, it's very important to be responsive. So them seeing both sides of you, it's very important. So when you're following up, just always be responsive, whether it's, sending that thank you email, or when that recruiter finally reaches back out and, they provide you with your offer or whatnot. And, I'm sure everyone gets like that offer deadline, making sure that you are following up by that offer deadline. And if for some reason you need some extra time, making sure that you connect with that recruiter and say, hey, I need a few extra days or whatnot. So just always being responsive and communicative, very important.
Thank you. That's a great tip. If you need extra time, ask for it. I don't know if a lot of folks know that that's a possibility to ask for that extra time with offers. Kind of lean in on, let's say you get to that stage where you do receive an offer. Is there a proper way to accept or reject an offer? Anyone? Let's see. I see Tony smirking a little bit. Let me toss to you, Tony.
Yeah. So when you're responding to an offer, I say it all the time. The first thing you should do is thank the individual for reaching out and extending an offer, whether they do that via email or by phone or whatever the avenue might be. No matter if you're disappointed or not, you should show excitement. Again, thinking about your bigger network and where you're going to be going for opportunities. And then, obviously you want to ask any questions that you have about that offer at that point from that step moving forward, if they're not able to answer that for you. And then I share this with students all the time. If the company doesn't provide it, just say, hey, when do I have to respond to you and what time frame and what's the best way for me to communicate? Kind of take ownership of that. If the company doesn't provide it, it makes you actually stand out as a candidate, in my perspective, that you're actually communicating professionally at that level. And it'll definitely put you in a better spot, whether you end up accepting that job or not long term.
Yeah. Does anyone have any tips on negotiations?
So just a few tips on negotiation. So if you would like to negotiate your offer, and maybe you already have a current offer that's a little bit higher, provide that recruiter with your current offer and say, hey, like I currently have an offer from this company and, here's the attached, because for reference, it's nice to have the reference as a recruiter so you can see exactly what that offer entails. And so, just going through that, so just let them know, say, hey, like I currently have this offer. Would you be able to match that? Or is there a possibility to maybe have a sign-on bonus? So, just therefore, like Tony mentioned, owning it, just own the process. You know, you're not, there is like that leadership skill, and it's very good to like lead with it. So just owning the process, asking the questions, it's very important. So
yeah. Ghosting, has that happened to you all from candidates, Lay? Have you ever seen that? Yeah.
Yes. So if we've followed up asking for your response, please do reply back. Even if you've accepted another position, we would just like to close out and inform the business, you know, the decisions. So yes, please, no ghosting.
No ghosting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any final tips about following up, Haiti?
Yeah, of course. In terms of following up, I think after having that offer conversation, a follow-up message is always greatly appreciated. I do want to say, as Tony mentioned, you want to leave that door open, not only when you're applying to one job, but for like, always keep that door open. I've had candidates who maybe weren't able to do their internship due to personal reasons. They led with kindness, and now that door is open for them if they want to apply to a new grad opportunity the following door. So leading with kindness, being transparent as to, you know, where you stand in the application process if you're applying to other companies as well. We understand that we're recruiters. We know we're not the only company you might be applying for, but being transparent and leading with kindness, I think it goes a very long way in the interview process.
I love that. Those are 3 big tips there. Lead with kindness, be transparent, and don't close doors, right? Keep your opportunities open. So wrapping up, I'd love if you all could share some stories or examples of mistakes you've seen people make just getting started in software engineering in this industry, or share experiences that you have had that you learned from. So some things what not to do, so that we can learn what to do better and to improve ourselves. So let's start with Iona. Any just your personal stories or things that you've seen that you want to help this generation, this group now on their journey?
So what I've seen a lot lately is, you know, some people come into the field and they don't ask questions. Always ask questions. The managers know that this is new to you. And so asking the questions will help set you up for, you know, excelling in whatever it is that you're going to do. So I've seen many times where people just come in, they don't ask the questions, and, you know, they just like fly by the seat of their pants, you know, they just, no questions, just trying to get along. But I really encourage asking questions, whether it's about like the position that you're in, whether it's about HR, anything in HR or whatnot, you know, anything that can possibly be. Always ask questions. Asking questions opens up doors to things that you may not have had the opportunity to before. Like, for instance, if there's someone on your team who knows a software that you really want to know, ask them if you can shadow them to, you know, learn that software. And then so maybe while you're shadowing that person, you ask more questions and they're like, oh, I know a guy that can do this software. And so you keep, by asking questions, you build your network and you grow your own portfolio. So very important to always ask questions and just build on them.
I love that. Thank you. That's a life lesson, I think, as well. Ask questions. Lay, experiences or past mistakes that you've seen, whether it's yourself or through the recruiting process that you've seen?
The biggest one as of late is time zones, getting confused with interviews and misreading what time zone, especially if they're in a, you know, it's a central, you know, Round Rock time and the candidates in the Pacific. So be very aware when you get that confirmation from the interviewing team that you look at what time zone that is and plan accordingly.
It's a great tip. With Zoom fatigue and all the things that have been coming up, it's easy to forget that, especially if it's a virtual interview. But even in person, get there on time. Yeah. Get there on time. Haiti, any tips, experiences, things that you've seen lately?
Yes, of course. I would say to network once you're, you know, network as much as you can. If you're doing an internship, that's a great opportunity to not only talk to your team, but talk to everybody outside of your team. There's people who, you know, might have been a software engineer, moved to a different role. You get to learn so much about just having like coffee chats with folks. Here we're super friendly, and I don't think anybody would decline a coffee chat, a conversation if you're willing to learn and willing to, you know, share your story and hear somebody else's story. So I always tell my interns, network as much as you can, meet the other interns as well. They have, also different experiences from you. How did they get here? What's your degree? And, ask them different questions. There's so much you can learn from just having a coffee chat with someone, or, tapping the shoulder of somebody at work. So go outside your team and also ask, like Ayana said, like ask those questions and also network.
Oh, great advice there, especially with diverse populations. You get diversity of thought and ideas, and kind of building your network within that grasp by asking those kind of questions, by being open, by learning from these mistakes as well. Tony, you gave us a story earlier. Do you have any others that you want to share?
I probably could give several, as you know, Kristen. I think one of the best stories I have to share of not what to do, there was a candidate that we had in our application process who got into our interview, got an offer, and then basically prior to the interview, we had preset with this person what the salary would be, et cetera, around that. Got to the point of the offer, and then they came back and tried to negotiate for like $20,000 to $30,000 more. Well, the manager backed out of it and said, hey, I don't want to make this offer anymore if they're asking for that much. Then that person followed up with me 6 months and a year later, and they were still seeking an opportunity. I think that's a good example of, how you communicate and who you're doing this with, because even the UR team can't necessarily help you out in that situation when that information gets passed back out. And then I would just share more broadly, I love what everyone has said so far. I think for students in general, that would probably really help them is to stop, slow down, and read what comes into them via email. You've got a great slate of people here on this panel who will probably all tell you that we probably send you everything that you possibly need to be prepared for an interview. And you look at it real quickly, and then you end up making a mistake by not stopping to do that. Do those things, right? It's just like everything else in life. And then honestly, my last thing, especially for software and for the CS field in general, is that, listen, you're in college, you're going to get your degree, you're looking for opportunities, but this most likely won't be your biggest decision in your life. So Lily, take a step back and relax and speak to who you are, instead of stressing yourself out over some of these situations, because I typically have seen students who have done much better as always being honest, being relaxed, and really speaking to where they're at in these situations. And when you do that, that will reduce any potential problems that you're going to have on the back end side of that.
Yeah, I think it comes full circle, Tony, about being detail oriented. You started with that, and you ended with that. So thank you. But also just take the time you need. I love those really great advice from this panel. So thank you all. I want to say thank you all for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out with any additional questions that you may have, and take advantage of the resources that are available to you from WayUp and Yellow. We're excited for your journey, and I want to thank my panel here for your incredible and valuable insight. Let's go ahead and open up this session now for Q&A.